And if we have learned anything from history, we've learned that great civilizations are at a greater danger from destroying themselves from within than they are ever endangered by an outside peril. And when I see the consequences of our government, when I see the actions of our government over the last 12 months, I see actions that will have consequences not for a few years, but for several generations. We're mired in a great recession. And our leaders tell us that the way to get out of this recession is for the government to spend more borrowed money. Oh, in fact, would you know, over the last 12 months, we have borrowed more money than total from all the presidents from George Washington to George Bush combined. Now, why would they do that? I think they do it because they really believe this stuff. They believe that governments create jobs. I know that businesses create jobs, not governments. And I know that if we'll allow men and women in businesses large and small to keep more of our own money, we'll create our own stimulus. They really believe that the best way to cure health care is to put the bureaucrats in charge. I know the cure for health care is to put the patients in charge with their doctors. They really believe that we need bigger government to control more aspects of your life. I know we need limited government. Because it all comes down to the fact they really believe that liberty is given to men and women by government. And that the strength of our nation and that the solutions to the challenges that we face can be found in government. I know that freedom is the gift of God to every man and woman. And that the great strength of our nation and the solutions to the challenges that we face can be found in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our churches, in our communities. You don't have to look further than our own state to see evidence of that. Do you remember immediately after Katrina? 48 hours after the storm had passed, the north-south highways were clogged with church vans, trucks, pickups pulling trailers, all loaded with food, with construction supplies, headed south. It wasn't a government program. It was an outpouring of the American spirit where neighbor helps neighbor. Well, what's our own congressman done while all this has been going on? He's been an enabler. You know, he says one thing down here and he does something else in Washington. He began his role as an enabler on the very first day of the new Congress, when he stepped up and he cast a vote to empower Nancy Pelosi. Our congressman will tell you he's independent. In fact, in Mississippi, he'll say he's conservative. And then he goes to Washington and he brags that he's a moderate. All I know, he votes with Nancy Pelosi 82% of the time. Yep. And he has voted for Nancy Pelosi 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. And I know we can do better. But I also think that over the next 10 months, I need to talk to you and tell you not why somebody else shouldn't be your congressman, but why I should be. And I don't need to just tell you what I'm against. I need to tell you what I'm for. Many of you know that while I was in college, I lost my eyesight. Had it restored through cornea transplants. But because of that experience, I've become a student of the great woman Helen Keller. She's a woman who overcame significant adversity. One day she observed that there was something that was worse than being blind. And that was to have sight, yet have no vision. So if I'm going to be your congressman, I think that I need to communicate to you my vision for Mississippi and my vision for America. You know, if I'm going to be your voice in Washington, the first thing I need to do is listen. So I have a vision of a congressman who will have live, face-to-face town hall meetings. Meetings where we can discuss eyeball to eyeball the great issues of the day. And let's face it, we're not going to always agree. But I need to always be willing to sit down with you, look you in the eye, and discuss those issues. I have a vision of an open Congress, one that's void of those closed-door meetings where billion-dollar vote buyouts take place. I have a vision of a Congress that will actually read what they're voting on before they vote. But more importantly, I have a vision of a Congress that will actually allow the American people to read what you're voting on before we vote. Because if there's one thing I've learned in my 15 years in the state Senate, it's to trust the American people. If you know what we're voting on, we'll do the right thing. It's when you have to sneak it in and not let the American people know what you're voting on that you're doing the wrong thing. I have a vision of a society whose laws hold life sacred. And it's been my privilege to stand up for it. I have a vision of a thriving economy where men and women are free to work and to earn and to invest their capital and then to enjoy the fruits of their labor, to enjoy their profits of their business, to enjoy their wages without fear of confiscation from a government in the form of higher taxes. I have a vision of a government that respects the Second Amendment every bit as much as it respects the First. I have a vision of a Congress who is committed to live within its means and will discontinue its practice of borrowing money from my grandchildren. I have a vision of passing on the blessing of liberty and opportunity to successive generations. That's my vision. But more importantly, I think it's your vision. You know, I was born in this district. Except for a few brief years, I've lived my entire life in this district. I think I know its people. And that's why I think we share the same vision.